Hey, it's Snej. This last couple of weeks in lockdown, I've been thinking a lot about food in our home and in particular with my three boys. So I have an 11-year-old, a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old. And I started to find myself using food as a reward and using food as something of interest, adding some extra snacks, or even thinking, oh, they've had a really bad day in lockdown today, or they're feeling a bit flat, I'll go and get them something. I'm not sure if that sounds familiar, but I started to become very aware of myself because I've spent the last 20 odd years teaching people not to connect emotions with food and to see food as a source of fuel. I created this video for you to be a bit more mindful about what's happening around food, because I caught myself out creating a situation that I didn't really want to create. And now I can understand that, and in my home as well, that lockdown is tough and we can be using food, as I mentioned, as a reward to finishing off their homework or finishing off this or doing that or packing up. Or it could be, feeling like, let's just cheer them up, let's just get an ice cream together. Or it could be, let's just cook together, let's just bake this cake together. The food has become more central and more of an activity. And just as we're putting on weight, we are putting our kids at risk of putting on weight as well when we're using food in that way in lockdown. So this is a video about just being a bit more mindful, and also it's a video to give you some strategies around what you can do to make sure that you're not falling into that trap of using food in unhealthy ways, but also being able to look after your children and their health that will extend beyond this lockdown. So I'm really big in this whole lockdown, and the activities that I've done through my business and to support our community is to continue to help people to be well in this time of lockdown, because you don't want to be spending, the years to come trying to undo your reduced level of health or the reduced level of health of your kids as a result of some of the habits that we fell into due to lack of awareness and lack of education in lockdown. So the first thing to do is to be quite mindful of how you're using food, when you're using food, and just start to observe what your kids are doing, when they're eating, why they're eating, are they hungry, all of those things. My first strategy is to make sure that you have routines in your day, and that's also routines around food. So that could be around having set meal times so that they know that when they're waking up, there's breakfast, and then they'll have a morning snack or munch and crunch. Try and stick to a very similar pattern or an improved version of the pattern that they were having at school. So they can have their breakfast, their morning snack, their lunch, their afternoon snack, and then dinner, and then pretty much nothing after that. So having those set meal times, if they do go to reach for something, and I had this conversation just the other day with one of my boys, or actually a few of the boys, where it was like, you've had breakfast, and they sort of stretched out a bit longer because they had work to do, but it got to 11 o'clock and they started to get a bit hungry. So then they had a snack, but then at 12 o'clock they had another snack. And I said, hang on a tick, you've had two snacks, when's lunchtime coming? And there was just this constant, just get a little bit and go back. And I just went, no, this is not happening. So making sure that you're scheduling those meal times, and if they do feel like they are a little bit hungry in between, just try and stretch them out, or just say, look, it's not food time now, we're waiting to lunch, or just keep your appetite for lunch. A part of that, which is the next routine, is just to make sure that you're bringing food out and then it gets removed away. So another strategy that I did more so in the first lockdown than what I'm doing at the moment is actually packing their lunch boxes every day. And I think I stopped doing that because I just loved not having to pack a lunchbox every day. But that's one thing that you can definitely do, is pack their lunch, pack their snacks and label them. This is your morning snack, this is your lunch, this is your afternoon snack, and having set times where they can access that. If you're not packing lunch boxes, then just removing food out of sight, removing fruit bowls, removing nuts, seeds, any sort of snacks just out of reach and just away from them. That's not something visible, like I know that for me, if there's a variety of different snacks, I'll bring out a couple of bowls of fruit and some nuts and some packets of rice crackers or whatever it is, and I'll have that available to them on the table. But as soon as that snack time is over, all of that stuff gets removed, because if there is 10 packets of something, then they'll go through and have one each if it's packed away. If I leave it out there, those 10 packets are gone by the end of the day. So the other thing is to make sure that you have the practice with yourself and with your children to only eat in designated areas. So they can't eat in their bedroom, they can't eat in their bed if that's where they're doing their WebEx or Zoom classes from. They can't eat at their desk, they need to move away, have a little bit of a break. So you can create a couple of interesting spaces. So one's obviously the kitchen table, but if you've got an outdoor deck area, that might be the morning snack time if it's a nice day and the weather is warmer. But they need to have food only in specific locations. So they cannot eat on the couch and all of that sort of thing. And we know through loads of research that when kids in particular and adults as well, when they are distracted from focusing on their food, they will tend to eat a lot more. The other thing is having good sleep routines. That's another routine. Making sure that kids are going to bed to get adequate sleep, because if they are staying up later, just like we do as well, we're going to get the munchies and they're going to be on snacking on extra food that they just don't need. And that's also for their waking up time as well, because depending on when they wake up, I've got mine up, they need to be on their calls at 9. So I'll wake them up at 8 o'clock every morning, and they've got time to do their routines. They've got time to make a proper breakfast and have that and be ready with face washed and teeth brushed, ready to go. So allowing them to sleep in late and get up at the last minute means that they miss that breakfast, that scheduled breakfast, which is their brain food for the day or for the morning session. So then you'll find that they're in their homeschooling environment, and then they're an hour later wanting to snack, and then they're sort of making up for that breakfast in small snacks throughout the day. So some of those strategies that I've just discussed are around routines. The other thing that we want to do is find other ways to nurture, to have fun, to fill up time. So we are definitely using food for a variety of functions outside of just satisfying our hunger. And so if we're going to remove that, then we need to replace it with something. And that's about playing with your child, spending quality time, reading together, just cuddles. My son and I yesterday were just laying on the grass, watching cloud formations, and just had his head was resting in the crook of my arm, and we're just lying back, just watching and just spending quality time together. Okay, 60-second hugs are a thing, and they are such a big thing in our house, and something that you should utilize, because sometimes when the kids are feeling a little bit frustrated and reaching for food, you could just give them a gentle rub on the back, or give them a cuddle, let's go for a walk together. So finding other things to do. And if you are using it to take up some time as an activity, taking out some Lego, some free play activities where they can explore and create. I've been taking my boys out with the camera on our walks, and the walks take a lot longer. They come home with interesting content that we then view and we can share with family or on my social media page. So just finding alternative ways. Let's play a board game. Let's do basketball outside. Let's have hit the tennis ball up against the wall. Let's fly a kite if you've got enough space in your own backyard. Whatever it is, we might even just watch a movie together. Let's just watch, a 30-minute episode of something in the middle of the day. It just seems so unusual, and an opportunity that we're never going to get to do these things again. So the other thing is to find other ways to reward them, blowing bubbles, like all of those basic things that we can do to have a bit of fun, have a bit of a laugh, and make that time go. You may even want to get into some craft activities where you would normally, take the afternoon to bake a cake. You may want to do, press some flowers or create a flower arrangement, or I don't know, whatever it is and whatever works for your family. But I guess it's just about finding, the food that was coming in at unnecessary times, how were we using it? What was the function of that food at that time? Was it distraction? Was it nurture? Was it using up time? Was it procrastination? What was it? And let's try and fill that gap with a more effective behavior. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is that this is a difficult environment, and yes, food sometimes can be used to nurture us. And how do we do that in a positive and in an effective way so we can still look after the health of our kids and still keep them healthy and at a healthy weight? And I think one of those things is that definitely I've been making, they're getting cooked lunches every day. Like, that's not a normal thing that they'd be getting at school. So, and it is nurturing. It is a nice feeling. It feels good in our bodies to have that beautiful smell going through the home. So what can we do to still experience that joy of food, but in a healthy way? And the way that what I would do is absolutely still bake together, still cook together, but enjoy those foods at snack times or at a scheduled meal time. My son yesterday made, a hedgehog slice, which I was a bit shocked at what went into that. But once he made it, it was like 1:30 in the afternoon. It was 1 o'clock and it was sort of lunchtime. And I said, okay, let's have lunch, and then in a couple of hours, we'll have that as our part of our afternoon snack alongside of our nuts and fruit. So it's just a matter of integrating those things into your day and saying, okay, well, we'll use that as part of our dinner, or we'll use that as our morning snack tomorrow, or whatever it is. The other thing is definitely making richer foods, more fulfilling foods, taking the time to cook, really scrumptious meals, but making sure that they are only consuming how much that they need. Now, this is about you. So if you are going to make something that's a little bit more elaborate in terms of a meal, it is going to be more filling, and they probably will need less. So remembering as a parent, and healthy parenting around food, is that you choose the time of day that they eat and you choose what they eat, but they very much dictate quantities. Quantity has nothing to do with you and your stomach and your eyes and what your brain thinks it should be. It's very much about those kids. So if you are going to prepare something that's a little bit more delicious, absolutely enjoy it together as a family. But when they've had enough, we're not asking them to finish off their plates and clear their plates and make sure that they eat everything. So definitely incorporating more delicious foods and engaging with food and even desserts. However, if you are going to have a dessert, making sure that the dinner meal is a little bit smaller. Don't make it a pasta dish or a rice dish, because that element of that carbohydrate can be integrated through adding the dessert. So it might be a chicken salad. Okay, and they might get to the end of that. I know my boys, they're obviously teen boys, 2 of them are anyway, they're growing, and their consumption of the quantity of food is just huge to me anyway, but they're healthy and well. So I know that if they have made something special, with school cooking, or we've decided to bake in the afternoon, I will definitely make a lighter dinner, and then we add that, and it kind of completes and satiates them, and they feel satisfied rather than feeling over full. So they're my strategies about how to not only create routines around healthy eating habits, but then finding alternative ways to nurture and use food. And then the third aspect of that was integrating and using delicious foods, sweets and treats, and within your routine, so that it is still done in a healthy way that will look after the health of your kids. Now, the other thing that I did want to mention is the why. Why is this so important at this point in time? And as I mentioned, the kids, you need to keep them healthy and well. But the other aspect of this is that they're going through a tough time. They're going through their own emotions, and the quality of the food is going to help them to cope. So making sure that they're getting a wide variety of nutrients, making sure that they're hydrating in the day, and making sure they're getting a good combination of protein and fats throughout their day is not only going to allow them to perform better within their homeschooling environment, but is going to allow them to cope better. Adding too much sugar and salt into their day and unhealthy fats is a source, especially that sugar, which I'm so against, is that source of internal stress. So it's not a stress that we can perceive, like we can see being in a homeschool environment, or demands of work to be done and not getting access to the amount of help that they need, or not understanding things, or being tripped up by technology and internet access, or COVID itself, and just listening to the daily updates and how that affects their parents and watching all that in action. It is very stressful. There's a lot of stress going on in their external environment. We don't want to compound and increase that stress with a type of stress that isn't visible to us and that we don't even realize the impact that it does have. And that's that stress of consuming food that is bad for us, that agitates us internally. Things such as sugar, it's the big one. Colors, preservatives, all of those foods that contain those elements in it agitate the body and lead to frustration. It doesn't create a sense of calm in their bodies, and it will not create a sense of calm in them. So this isn't just about sticking to routine and being perfect eaters. And it's not even just about weight gain. It's about their ability to cope, their resilience, their clarity in their thinking, their emotions, and regulating their emotions, especially when you're dealing with teenagers. So these are the many reasons why you want to be very mindful and looking after the quality of food and the way that your kids are eating, when they're eating, why they're eating in lockdown. It is absolutely essential and important to their health and well-being at this time. So I hope that some of those strategies help, and I hope it's brought some awareness to you, because it's quite simple to get trapped in lockdown. And I found, as I mentioned earlier at the start of the video, I found I was doing it myself. I can see it's just not serving us. So I've really tidied things up. And when you start to make changes, it's not about making a big announcement about it. And this is the real key and my secret formula to success when it comes to adapting diets, even within myself or with yourself as well. And especially if you're going to change what's been happening around the house, is that don't make a big announcement about it. Don't say, hey everybody, we're going to get a lot healthier and we're making this huge change. I would just make the change. And if they've been having, an unhealthy carbohydrate snack, and now you're going to replace it with something different, or even just a healthier version of something similar, just replace it. Just have more fruit around. Just have a variety of nuts around. Just have some dried fruit there. Just have vegetables, like whatever it is, just the options that are available and what's in their environment is what they're going to eat. If you say, hey, I'm taking all of this stuff away, you're not going to see it there anymore, that's just going to create resistance to you doing that, but also resistance to whatever you're going to replace it with. Whereas if you have the things alongside of each other and you find those unhealthier or those higher sugar and high salt snacks kind of start to reduce in availability around the house, they're only going to eat what you put in front of them. So that's another thing. Just slowly make those changes, have things around, bring alternative snacks out or meals or whatever it is, but you don't need to make a big announcement about it to create a war and resistance around, because we don't like change, and with so much change that's happening at the moment, we want to minimize that. So just gently slide in some healthy snacks. Give those things a go. Please share, let me know, comment on this video. Let me know if it has helped and what has helped. I would love to get your feedback of some of the strategies that you're implementing at home.